Good afternoon. You're listening to My Conscious Dad right here on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. Today, we are going to be talking about receiving feedback from your kids. But before, I want to have my dad introduce himself and let everybody know, if you're new, what he's about, what he does in the Valley. I don't think I introduced myself. I'm Jasmine Urbina. I'm his daughter. We do the show together, and he's a life coach, and he does coaching with a lot of teens, which what I love about this show is that we're giving parents an insight about what your kids are thinking when they don't tell you about it.
Yeah, so my name is Alex Urbina. I'm a life coach. I'm also a transformational trainer. I facilitate powerful personal development trainings for teenagers, parents, and business professionals, and you kind of work the whole gamut. But more importantly, I do one-on-one coaching, and a lot of my coaching is done with parents and couples. But when I get requested to do work with teens, a lot of the times I'll take on that request because a lot of the work that I need to do with the teen, I really have to do that work with the parent. The parent really has to be open to the possibility that some of the dysfunctions that's going on within the kid is a byproduct of their parenting. And I know that's a hard pill to swallow sometimes, but that's really what the gist is about. And so a lot of times I'll take those requests and I'll start coaching the kids, and I'll do a little bit of work with them. But a lot of times I'll do the work with them, one or two times, and then I'll start to ask the parents to be a part of it. And a lot of times I'll ask the parents, are you open to be coached as well along with your kids? So when I get the participation from both of them and they're both open to that possibility, that's when I'm able to sit down and kind of coach both of them so that I can make course corrections on both sides, the parent side and the kid side. And when I get that participation, all of a sudden you start to notice that the results start shifting in their life.
Yeah, I in my experience, being in the trainings with these kids, they always share, they have very emotional experiences, and it seems like they've never said some of the things that they're saying out loud. I feel like my parents don't care about me. They always do this and that. It's all things that they've, I guess, made up in their mind and they've kept inside, and they've never had anybody to tell. So when they finally tell it, it's so emotional. And the kids are like, I mean, I've never seen 13, 14-year-olds, 16, 17, 18-year-old boys cry so much. And it's usually in this environment and, stuff that you and your team create for them.
There's something that's powerful when your son or daughter, for the first time in their life, all of a sudden starts to get some kind of clarity of how to put into words what they're feeling. Quite often when I work with teenagers or even young adults, they don't know how to articulate themselves in a powerful way. They know how they feel, but they don't know how to translate it into words. So a lot of times, either in the training room or if I'm doing one-on-one coaching, I'm helping the kids decide what words are important to them to be able to explain themselves. And a lot of times they'll be trying to tell me what they mean, and then I'll ask them permission to put it into my own words. And when I'm done, they're excited and they go, yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. Can you say that to my mom, or can you tell my dad that? And today's show, we've labeled it the feedback that your kids will give you. And so I want to, this show was inspired by a letter that was written by a young adult that has spent several sessions in a training room with me and my team, and has done a little bit of work on herself. For the first time in her life, she's realizing how to access more of her own personal power and start to take responsibility for her life rather than being a victim to her parents and her childhood. But it's also a journey and it's a process. But what's powerful about attaining this letter that she wrote was that in her writing there was a lot of cathartic. You could tell there was some cathartic experience happening, and there was some things that she started to get clarity about, and she started to really share herself in a way that I think in those words there was a little bit of healing and a little bit of her reclaiming her power back. And I want to share this with the audience and people that are listening, and then I want to ask you, as you're listening, mom or dad, what kind of a letter do you think your kids would write to you when they're 20, when they're 30, on their deathbed? What kind of a feedback letter would they give you? Now, we know that you're an amazing mom. We know that you're an amazing dad, and you love your kids, and you're trying to do the best you can. And this show's not to put you down or to point out your faults or to make you feel bad and wrong for the things that you're not doing more effectively. But if they were going to write you a letter, and there's a loving letter and a thank you, and I'm so grateful, and you're an amazing parent. And then there's a part of them that they really want to share with you to give you the feedback so you can course correct yourself to be a more effective parent. The question is, would you want to hear that feedback? And for me, the answer is absolutely. I would love for my kids to sit down and write a letter letting me know where I've fallen short, what they need from me, or even maybe giving me feedback from their perspective of how they think that I parented them. And so I would like for you to read this letter so that the listeners can hear this letter, and then I want to break it down and really kind of talk about it.
So how this started was the young adult that you're talking about, her mom posted a picture on her wall, her daughter's wall, and she said
on Facebook
and said, basically, I know sometimes I treat you, I'm hard on you, or I am nosy and I snoop through your things. That's what moms do. We love you. She posted one of those kinds of already made photos, and she wrote, "I love you so much," and this explains everything. And what I love about this letter, before I read it, what I love about it is the daughter's response. Yeah, the daughter's response, the letter. She calls her mom out and she says, "No, that's not what it was. So I'm not going to let you get away with this."
From my perspective, this is how I saw it.
Yeah,
this is my reality.
So it's a little long. So I'm going to go ahead and start. But it's a very powerful letter. The post actually started with "My promise to my children," and it went on with "I promise to love you, I promise to be there for you," kind of thing. So she started her letter with "My promise to my children. I will hit you and push you out of my own anger as a child and adult. I will steal your birthday and Christmas money from you and your brother to support my addictions. I will let you drink until you're drunk at the age of 9 without your father knowing, and I'll be there by your side unconscious. I will raise you to believe that your father doesn't love you or your brother, but that the men I sleep with care. I will make false accusations about you and your father abusing me to explain my own adolescence, to comfort my mind without any responsibility. I will take everything I know you love away from you, however I can, whatever it takes. I will endlessly lie, cheat, and make selfish choices knowing that it will hurt you and the family. I will never apologize for the things that I've done because I'm not your parent and I can do what I want, even if that means choosing drugs over you. I will not be proud of you, but rather jealous of your accomplishments, knowing that I was unable to fulfill my own due to my insecurities and inhibition to live my life happily, and I will blame you for all of it. I will ensure that I am a bad mother and force you to look to other women in your life for clarity and comfort through your endless growth. When you're an adult and I'm gone, I only hope that you might forgive me, even without an apology. I have not done my job properly. I have killed your soul, and our relationship does not and will never exist in this life."
Wow. So I have a knot in my throat because you can feel the pain and you can feel the inner child inside of her, stepping up and wanting to stand up for herself and say, "Hey, this is how I saw it. This is my experience being your daughter." And there's a part of me that's excited for her because she's able to articulate this and get it out and verbalize it and put a voice to it. It's almost like the conscious, young, powerful woman in her is actually fighting for the inner child in her that maybe got lost when she was younger, or slowly died inside of her. And it was kind of, to me, this is kind of like a moment of her reclaiming her power. I'm sure her mom, didn't like it. I'm sure it stung, if not was a serious gut check. But I'd like to kind of break this down a little bit. What are your thoughts on this? When you read it, what was the first thing that came to your mind?
I guess because I know this person personally, it was very emotional, and I know the things that she went through as a kid and growing up. So for me, it was especially emotional. And like you said, I can see the pain, but I'm really proud of her for finally stepping up, because knowing that as a little kid, you don't know that your parents are supposed to be responsible for you. So you think that everything that happens to you is your fault or something that you did. So for years, I experienced her not wanting to put so much blame on her mom. I experienced her basically take responsibility for all the things that happened when she shouldn't, when she should have held her mom accountable. So this letter to me is holding her mom accountable, and for that, I'm very excited for her
and proud of her, as I am. And it also says a lot about her courage to be able to stand up to a parent. I think that if you're from the old school parenting style, you probably unconsciously parent from a place of dictating and operating out of fear and parenting from a fear-based model where you scare your kids and your kids won't have the audacity to challenge you, and you can just kind of do what you want and not really have to answer for it or speak into it or even explain why you do what you do. And so I think this was a powerful moment for her really to kind of express herself. So let's get into this for a moment. And if you're listening from the ear of a mom or a dad, I don't want you to listen from the place of a parent being so dysfunctional, where you're an addict, or you're really abusive. I want you to think about what your own child, what kind of letter they would write to you. So if you are a loving mom and loving dad and you work really hard to be that for them, there still are some holes in your parenting. There's still some insecurities, whether they're minor or major, that still fall through the cracks. And we still take our anger out on our kids and our frustration, and we don't mean to, but it slips through. And those are kinds of some of the things that I want you to look at. So the first part where she says, "I will hit you and push you out of my own anger as a child and adult." What that's telling me is that the daughter is really conscious about her mom's come from. She's realizing now as a young adult herself that, hey, all those times that you were either hitting me or spanking me or abusing me in that way, now as a young lady, as a conscious young woman, I'm starting to see that you're doing that out of your own insecurities. You are doing that to me out of your own anger, your own frustration, maybe at your own parents, or what you don't have, or what your life doesn't look like. She's getting clarity here that it never was really her fault. A lot of it was coming from the insecurity and the fear of her mom. Is that also something that you can see as well, or how do you see that part?
The part where she says, as a child and as an adult, I think she's also acknowledging that her mom as a child probably had a lot of anger. So her mom as a child, or her mom as an adult, still carries that anger. So she's saying that the anger isn't about, the daughter being a child and an adult. It's about her mom carrying that anger that whole time. And for me, I could see how if you didn't know this or you didn't acknowledge this, you would put it all on yourself. What did I do to my mom? So it takes a really conscious person to look at this and say, wow, my mom probably has always had a lot of anger. So she just is always going to take it out on me.
And that's common when a son or a daughter is growing up in a home where they're being abused, whether it's physically or mentally or emotionally, and they're taking that abuse. A lot of the times that little mind can't rationalize that, well, maybe my dad's frustrated, or maybe my mom has some issues. They can't do that. So that little brain, that little mind, what it does is it makes up stories about themselves. Maybe I'm bad and wrong. Maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I could be a better son or a better daughter. A lot of times I've heard kids blame themselves for when their parents divorce. And it has nothing to do with the son or the daughter. It has to do with the dysfunction in the relationship and the ability for the mom and dad to even learn how to relate to themselves and each other. But quite often the kids will make up a story that it's about them. I'm bad and wrong. I'm not adequate enough. And so here in this sentence, in this phrase, she's basically getting clarity that, hey, you doing all that to me had nothing to do with me. This was your own stuff. The next part I wanted to address, it says, I will let you drink until you are drunk at the age of 9 without your father knowing, and be there by your side unconsciously. When kids are little, they know when you're selling them out. they know when you're not holding them accountable. Even when they're 4 and 5 years old, when they're trying to trick you into letting them get away with something, or, they got in trouble and your job as a parent is to enforce the rule or make them own up to the consequence. And when they play the whole mom, or dad, I'm so sorry I did that. I'll never do it again. And then you go, oh, okay. And you brush it off. They know, their spirit knows that you sold them out. And little kids, they want you to parent them, even though they will throw a fit. There's a part of them deep down inside. They want you to hold a line for them. They want you to create some rules and have some guidelines. They need you to be that stick in the mud for them so that they can learn how to be a powerful young person that knows the difference between right and wrong and gets punished or have to pay a consequence for things that they've done where they've broken the rules.
What I'm kind of hearing you say, at least for me, what the part that I agree with is that little kids know when something's wrong. And I don't know about you, but it would be really weird to do something wrong in front of your parents and then be doing the same thing wrong. Does that make sense? So if you're 9 years old and you're drinking with your mom, that's wrong. And it's
I think there's a in your mind, in a young adult mind, a young adolescent mind, you're saying, hey, this is cool. But your spirit's telling you, no, this isn't cool. And it's not cool, but you ignore it. You ignore that spirit voice. But the ego voice in your mind is like, hey, mom's cool. I've had, I don't know how many times, probably 200 or 300 times in the last 23 years working with teens where I've had young boys, even young girls, say to me, yeah, remember the first time I got high, it was with my mom. The first time I drank was with my dad. I was 8 or I was 15 or I was, and I'd ask them, well, how did you feel? And they're like, I thought it was the coolest thing in the world. And then I've had versions of young adults telling me that, at 24 or 29 or even 40 and 50. And they were saying, I used to think that it was cool until I realized how much damage it had done to me. And a lot of them, when they get older and wiser, they'll look back and they'll say, I wish that never would have happened. I wish my parents would have had enough maturity and enough security in themselves to be able to say, no, this isn't cool and you shouldn't be doing it. Neither should I. But if I am doing, I'm definitely not going to expose you to it. So I think that this is something where she was crystal clear that her mom was doing something in the moment. She probably thought it was cool, but it wasn't until she became a little more enlightened, a little bit more conscious to realize, no, that wasn't cool. And it probably tainted me or ruined me a little bit, kind of skewed me off into a whole nother direction.
I think, I guess maybe because I know a little bit more, I don't think that I don't think that there's a reason why her mom can't look at, I guess, I don't know how to explain it without getting too much into it, but one of the things that keeps coming to my mind is the reason why her mom took this post down. And I think it's, so the whole family wouldn't see it, so she wouldn't be embarrassed, things like that. And I can imagine some people listening and saying, God, I can't believe this girl posted that on her mom's wall. Well, she didn't. The mom posted this on her wall and she responded with the truth or her truth. And one thing I guess want to reiterate and point out is that she didn't go out of her way to publicly embarrass her mom. She didn't go out of the way to blast this on social media so her whole family can see it. She did this in a response to her mom's truth and wanted to share both sides.
I'm sure it was more of a statement. It was like, okay, you're going to step onto my real estate. You're going to step onto my property, and then you're going to put up this front to all my family and my friends or the world and say that these justifications were valid to hide behind.
Yeah, that all parents do this, and this is how it is.
And then it's okay for you to be like that, growing up. Well, I need to let you know that that's not how I saw it. This is how I saw it. And she wrote it in the letter. It wasn't like she was purposely, intentionally putting her mom on blast. It was more of doing it in a subtle way, going, all right, I'm going to write a letter from a kid's perspective of how I feel that the mom should have said it in a way that was probably more honest than it was to hide behind.
We have to take a break, but stay tuned for more of My Conscious Dad right here on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS.